gon' talk. Tamaya gon' talk about Tamaya.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Tamaya Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we have a very special guest, Coach Dre. Thank you so much for being with us, Dre.
No problem.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
You got it. Today we're going to be talking about generational curses versus generational consequences and how that has an impact on us, ourselves, our family, our mindset, our mental health, everything, and it affects everything. So you're one of the people without any, jump straight in. Dre, you're huge in the mental health and mental wellness department arena. You've helped me. You help kids.
You
help your family member. You're a superman. And I just want to make sure we get some information on what you feel as far as generational consequences and generational curses and what that means to you.
To me, the curse part is just something that we don't never want to reflect on and see that it's actually there. We tend to try to run away from it instead of identifying it. It is a curse. It is something that's continuance, and it's something that you done seen through generations from, coming up from yourself to the generation after you. It's just something that we don't want to identify. And I'm like, it's nothing that you can do about it, but identify it and try to get over it and try to change it. And that's something we don't see, us as folks trying to do.
Right.
So, me, I always look at it like this is an opportunity to break it. I come from that situation where they say, we can't make it, we can't get out, we can't rise, we're statistics. And that sometimes is our curse. And, from coming from my region, not a lot of people tend to branch out.
Right.
We're too scared. We're too afraid of change, So it's something I was able to see at an early age, and I identify with it. So
Right.
I've always, still to this day trying to, break that curse and trying to, amount to something.
Okay. And so with that, consequences versus curses, right? So you know a little bit about me, my story with my mom doing the drugs. So would you say that's a part of a curse or a consequence? And do you have anything that you can relate to as far as that?
I look at it as, and it's sad to say, not to say like it's a consequence, but I do look at it as like it's something that happened. And unfortunately, it happened to a lot of us. Drugs, coming into the home, our parents not knowing, hey, say no, poverty, those things affected our parents. And then later on, sorry, to say it like that, but, genetics, it branches on to us. So you can look at it as a curse. It's because, our parents, took something and now it's in their system and it becomes something that now it's in our system as a kid and we can't identify with it until certain things start to happen.
Right.
And you're like, oh man, I got this. Like, oh yeah. And you start to look at everything around you and others around you and you're like, I got the same thing. And it's just drugs, and it could be, our parents not coming back to talk to us about it when they did get, help, or if they did change, or if they still were on drugs. They never really tried to come back and talk to us about it. Still to this day, some of our parents, I wasn't on drugs. Man, stop that. Like, for real.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, you were. So I can identify from what you were talking about. It's something, seeing my mom, on drugs, and watching her, look out of windows and seeing the heart, I want to say like, I don't want to say hate, but you can see like the sadness in their face, knowing that they shouldn't be doing this, and they're looking at you as a kid, and they're trying to tell you everything gonna be okay, but it's really not gonna be okay.
Right.
I can identify with that, like totally. My dad telling me things and not showing up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It shapes you as a kid. It draws you into other companies that and you probably wouldn't partake if you had somebody talking to you about them. You know, it was so much glorifying about certain things, drugs, money, sex, violence, all that stuff is
Right.
it's in the melting pot. You know, there's no way to not acknowledge it.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
what you take is what you take, you know, so
Okay,
yeah.
and you touched on something important. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you think that impacted your upbringing, whether it was harder, did you feel like you had to be out in the streets? You know, what was your experience with that?
My experience, I'm from San Bernardino. I'm from 1443 Grand Street. You know, that's where I grew up at. You know, it's the heart of everything to me. You know, it shaped me. You know, I learned brotherhood over there just because, you know, we're not blood related. You know, I learned, you know, the grind.
Mm,
You know, I watch blue collar, you know, people go to work. You know, I watch hustlers.
mm,
Um, I seen pimps, prostitutes.
mm-hmm.
I seen everything, you know, death, you know, everything, you know,
Mm-hmm.
gang violence. I mean, it's just what it was, you know. Some of us make it out, some of us don't. Um, but it's love there, you know, and
Yeah.
people think that it's not, you know. My grandmother, that was her name, Love, you know,
Mm,
and she showed me, you know, honestly, good or bad, you know, helping others beyond you is something that you got to do.
right.
So, um, it shaped me. It made me grow up
Mm,
real quick. You know, I didn't have a childhood. You know, I had to grow up and adapt to what was around me. You
mm-hmm.
know, I wanted to, you know, do certain things, you know, but that wasn't a real reality for me. You know, a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
I didn't see none of that. That wasn't my reality. You
Right.
know, so, you know, it made me make bad choices at times, you know. But to me, I also look at it like, you know, as an adolescent, you're gonna make mistakes. You know, it's what you take from it and what you're gonna learn from it.
Okay.
And I had some people that was giving me game on how to, you know, change my narrative on how I look at it. You know, so and that's
Mm,
something that, you know, you don't see that guidance anymore. It's not there.
mm,
You know, if it is,
right.
they rooting for you to, you know what I mean, end up in that pot, be that next one, you know what I mean? Like, nah, it's an outlet. There's a bigger picture to it. It's
Mm,
just about, you know, how big you want to think and how big you want to move.
okay.
So,
So do you think that you used religion or just that natural grit and grind to motivate yourself? Because you're a powerful coach. And one thing I say, hey, we come from the same school of thought, which is that hard nosed, get it done. And that's why I love you as a coach. But you also, I
thank
see
you, thank you.
sometimes your heart is out there. People come in the gym, you're paying for people. And that's a lot of people kick him out of here. You're like, no, I'm going to pay for this person. So what makes you be able to turn it around? Because I see you as a motivator. You really are. You're huge.
Giving back is something, you know. I come from, like I said, a melting pot of religion. I have my uncles that are Muslim. I got my aunties and my uncles that are Christian and stuff like that. So I got to see, you know,
Mm-hmm.
both sides of
Mm-hmm.
religion. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I had a pastor next door named Mr. Donald. He's like our grandfather, you know. But he showed me so much, and
Okay.
I just came from somebody that wasn't even my grandfather. And to see, you know,
Mm-hmm.
him give back to so many others in the neighborhood and helping out, like I was destined to do that. Like, you know,
Mm,
from the talk of him telling me, you know, when he took on, you know, to become ordained to be a pastor, he told me an angel sat on the top of his roof and told him, you know, I need you to speak the gospel.
mm,
And I was like, whoa. And all this happened while he was sick, sitting in his truck, smoking a cigarette, trying to get over a cold. And he was
yeah.
sweating himself out, sweating all the fluids out. And I didn't understand as a kid. I'm like, Mr. Donald, you sitting in this car, it's hot. It's like
Yeah.
100 degrees. And he in there reading the paper, smoking a cigarette.
Wow.
And, you know, he was, you know, talking to me about something and it went into that. And I was like, whoa. But I watch him give back to so many of us out there, you
Right.
know, helping to, you know, people in my neighborhood, they used to give us free haircuts, rides, to football, basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
We needed shoes. They was trying to help us out, So me giving back, it's bigger than me.
Right.
Like none of this stuff I could take when I'm dead and gone, nor do I want to. So
Right.
I don't mind helping out. So if I see somebody, man, I'm gonna help. If I can help, that's too easy.
Right. Right.
Like, it's nothing but money.
That's
Like
right.
honestly, you, it's paper. Some value it. I don't value it like that.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can pay my bills and take care of things,
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool. I believe CeeLo from Goody Mob had this line where he said, "Well, I don't mind being broke. At least I know what my friends are here for. It ain't because I got money, but it's because I'm rich in spirit. So I look at things like that. Like I don't care. It's a
Mm-hmm.
kid getting into a game, or a parent getting into a game to root their child on. I think that's golden. Like
Yeah.
I love it. So for me, helping out, too easy.
Yeah, that's powerful. For me, and we've talked about it. One thing I shared with you was two things though, and it just came up when my brother died, the one that was murdered. On his obituary, they said, "Only the strong survive." And I was like, see, that's kind of how culture hurts us, right? To where the
Right.
people, skin folk ain't always kin folk, right?
Nope.
And you can't put a finger on why they would put that. I ripped the obituary up and I don't have it, right? Because why would you put that? Why would you put that? That was huge. But can you talk to us a little bit about how culture has caused us to suffer consequences?
That's too easy because what the kids actually see, they tend to believe that that's real and it's not. I mean, those words, only the strong survive, that's nah.
Right.
What I mean? To determine, survive on using this, what I mean? You got to have wits. You got to outthink majority of things that's going on in society. Our time clock is our time clock,
Right.
but strong. I seen the strongest people turn weak, so that's a false. That's too false.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about what you want, your determination, your
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Truly that's what it is. But our kids are out here, they listen to music and they think that it's real. They
Mm-hmm.
think what these people are talking is real, and it's all false.
Yeah.
They're not living like that, nor are they trying to, want to be in that situation. It's about uplifting.
Right.
We should be trying to uplift one another, and trying to motivate. It's a time and place
Mm.
to have a mentality like that, and we don't have the mentality when
Yeah.
that time is truly needed. Um, and I always wanted to say this, we boycott and we stand up for things that, you know, we feel like that is crutching us as people, you know, but are we really, willing to sacrifice, We got people that lose their lives and we get out there and protest, and to me that doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
Um I'm not saying eye for an eye, but that's what get respected, and it makes you second guess on, your approach when it comes to certain, situations. And I watch, we as people, we do all this rah rah stuff and don't even be about it,
Right.
and I'm just like, I don't understand. Some people are willing to push it past that limit, but then you got people telling them, no, 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 no. But you got people that die. Like I don't really
Mm.
understand that culture on that. So I don't really, you know, get in on that when I see that, because to me it's like somebody's dead and gone. That ride and turn you around is it's over with. It's
Mm-hmm.
brushed under the rug, and it's never brought back up until an anniversary of that situation, when it shouldn't even
Mm.
be like that. We should walk down and respect one another on a day-to-day basis, regardless of who you are or what you are.
Right.
So um, yeah, it's bad.
Right. Right. It's
It's bad. So, if I could sprinkle something into these kids, to try to get them to realize, they are the future and they got the opportunity to make changes, do it.
right.
Do something that's powerful.
Right. Right.
Make them remember you. So
That's what you are. That's what you are. Because you're one of those people I see, and you never get tired of doing good. You never get tired. You never get burnt out. You're always
no,
on it. So I just want to make sure I thank you so much for being a light to us, for
I
all of
try, man.
us.
I
Right.
try.
Another thing I wanted to touch on was something that's near and dear to me, and I've talked to you a lot about is my mother, and that relationship and how tumultuous it was, and her not only just wishing death upon me, but actually trying to kill me, right? So I told,
Whoa,
yeah,
whoa,
exactly. So I told you
yes,
guys about the high speed
yes.
chase. And so mental health is one of those things that if a person, your mother, your cousin, your grandma, whoever suffers from depression or suicidal thoughts or anger, whatever it is, it bleeds into the generations.
Yeah,
So that's why you see
no
young women
doubt.
and men so angry and mad and suicidal. And really, they're not even mad. They're just suicidal, don't want to live, and don't realize that's what it is. So can you touch on that a little bit if you've had any type of tumultuous relationship with your mother, things she said or
Um,
done or
yeah, me and my mom, it was some time, it was just us, I watched her, be a black sheep to the family. I watched her endure and take
Mhm.
on so much. Um, Trisha always, always turn the other cheek to other things and still help her brothers and her
Mhm.
sisters out. If you needed it, she was gonna try to, help out. If we came over to visit, my mom would cook for everybody and stuff like that. Not saying that was, what happened to us when we came,
Right.
but she would do those kind of things, but just watching her go through so much, and it's like, why take on that when you can just not go? And nah, I'm not gonna deal with that. To where you watch it, tear your mom down, and she still want to be around it and argue, and I just look at it like, why?
Right.
Like, take yourself out of that, and me coming up, my mom has always been, everything to me. I always, tried to help, and she needed something. But sometimes, it comes to that point where you just you gotta stop, And
Hmm.
I had a time when my mom, called me late at night and told me she couldn't wait till I died. I was like,
Mm.
what's all this about? And I don't, you never understand, the mischief that's going on, and people surrounding, and you know spirits and stuff that be messing with people's heads, and I don't know what grasps her to want to even say something like that to me, but I took it with a grain of salt and just kept pushing. Like, I'm not gonna let that stop me. Granted, at that time, I was family orientated and stuff like that, but I just never understood why she would say something like that to me, like on the phone, like late at night. Like,
Hmm.
that's something I would never say to none of my kids. They can have my life. Like,
And on something like that, because I know I stopped talking to my mom for some years. I had to take a break. Did you have to take any time?
I stopped taking calls. I didn't talk to her for like 3, 4 years, and I
Mm.
still didn't. Just because I know what I put out into the world, and I don't put no bad juju out like that. And I'm a representation of Grand Street, so like, we ain't come from stuff like that. We ain't never wish harm on nobody. We gonna defend ourselves and stuff like that, but I ain't wishing. I'm your firstborn. Like, you coming at me crazy. Like, I still don't understand.
Right.
And nor did somebody ever want to look at it and make amends on. I said this to you. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So I took myself out of that. I stopped call. I don't want to take no calls, because when she would call me, it'd be late at night. Like, she didn't, had a couple beers, and
Hmm.
this is when you get to, feel like you can say whatever's, on your chest. You could talk, and I used to sit there and listen to her talk, and I didn't even say nothing, because
Right.
it was, past tense about the past. My
Mm.
dad, and love, and all that. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
forget all that. Like,
Right.
we need to be trying to, better the now. Forget the past ain't gonna change the future. We need to change the future. We need to, better ourselves mentally. So
Mm.
I had to mentally take myself away from that
Yeah.
and take time out and just say, you know what? We need not know what we say, you
Yeah.
know, and I just took it for what it is. I just stopped talking to her.
Right.
You know, it had to help it, you know, just because we born into a family don't mean we family, you know. And I
Right.
know that's something in the Bible where they say, you know, love thy mother and all that. Like, I'm cool on all that. Like, I'm cool. I can love you from afar, but I ain't got to deal with that, nor do I have to let that tear me down and have me trying to chase something that I know doesn't even identify with me. And we as people, we get broke down like that and we don't even know it. You
True.
know, you got somebody telling you how bad of a person you are and you really not. And you like really taking that time out to try to identify where
What am I?
what
What's wrong?
what's wrong with me?
What am
How
I
am I a
doing?
bad person? You done
Right.
let so many things pass you by because you entertain foolishness and
Yeah.
it didn't even apply to you. So why? You
Yeah.
done wasted years of things, you opportunities
True.
because you done put your mind on something that was never there. You were
Right.
never that bad person. And that's another part of mental health that where people don't understand. They get lost in that and they're trying to identify. And then you run into something and now you're on drugs and you chasing this because you're trying to figure out why do they feel like I'm that bad?
Yeah.
You're not
Right.
even bad. Like, what are you talking about? But
Right.
years done went by and you done lost so much of your life because you entertained something that wasn't even a
Yeah.
part of you.
It's
And I
like,
watched so many, you know, I watched me and my sisters and my brother, you know, identify with that. And I watched them try to figure out what did I do wrong? You know, you ain't do nothing wrong.
that's right.
And you gotta live.
That's right. Let it
You
go.
gotta you can't worry about mom. Mom gonna be okay. You gotta live. You gotta
Right.
push on. If not, you're gonna look up and you're gonna be still thinking about that and still trying to change that. You can't change something that's already doesn't apply to you.
That's
So that
right.
change has already been gone.
And
So
that actually brings me to my next piece, which is forgiveness, right? So, what is your philosophy on that?
I've been forgave her. I honestly like my mom, but that don't mean I gotta let it affect me. I don't gotta let it into my life.
Right.
You know, I forgive you. I don't even care nothing about it, to be honest. Like, it's just something that it's a stamp. Like,
Okay.
what what did I do that made you feel that way to even want to project that to me and even you know? So I'm cool. I know you know at the end of the day, it is what it is. I got my day. It's okay. But
Right.
you know, at
Right.
the end of the day, I forgive you. I'm gonna keep it pushing. You know, I'm not gonna let others put something in my head and be like, man, forget you, man. Turn your back on it. Da da da. If you need
Right.
something, if I got it, you can have it. Like I'm cool. Like, but I don't gotta be in your life like that. Like,
Right.
nah, I'm cool. I don't need
Okay.
it. It's another form of like I said, I'm entertaining something that really don't try to, you know, I know she loved me, but at the end of the day, it's not the type of love that I need right now. So I
Yeah.
got to continue moving. But
Yeah.
forgiveness, I've been forgave. Like,
You're good. And so tell us some of the areas, because I see you as an exemplary father, right? A father to your own biological kids, but then also
yeah,
to the program, to the basketball
yeah,
group, and you can tell us a little bit about that. But
yeah.
tell us some areas as far as how your childhood impacted how you father your children today.
Um, that's a good one.
Did it make you more, compassionate? Did it make you tougher on them? Like, hey, nobody cares, you better push through, or did it balance
I
you?
honestly like my kids. Like I've always, you know, I never hid nothing from them. You know, but me growing up, I always yeah, I had nothing, you know what I mean? So of course, you know, you
Yeah.
try to do things, you know, better for your kids, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So of course, you know, I tried to do as much as I can for them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
mentally wise and
Mm-hmm.
physically wise and material wise. But mentally, you know, I always wanted to show them, you know, hard work always pays off,
Okay.
regardless of what you're doing. Um, I watched my grandmother get up and clean in the living room, even when it wasn't dirty, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but she got up and she cleaned. and it was routine, clockwork. I look at, work the same way. I get up, I go do what I need to do, and I'm gonna go hard at it, and it's gonna look right, and it's gonna, you know, um, be identified as that's a good job. And I see my grandmother do that, on a day to day basis. So getting up and grinding for me, on a 9 to 5 is too easy because I know for sure I'm gonna get a paycheck.
Right.
So that's too easy. Um, but looking at my kids, like I always wanted to try to make it easier for them.
Okay.
Work hard so they can go to school. Try to build something so they can have something. Um,
Mm.
it's now, I look at them as like my daughter. She go hard like I do.
Yeah.
Like Monday through Friday, she's a go getter. Own place, car, grinding. My kids, they do the same thing. I look at, even my brother's son, Julian,
Hmm.
you know, he goes hard, just push.
Okay.
They know ain't nothing gonna come to you. You got to go get it,
That's right.
So no sense of sitting on your butt,
Hmm.
with your hand out,
Yeah.
Nah, go get it, So that's something that I was able to see, coming up, watching others,
Okay.
get it in different ways. But
Hmm.
um, it shaped me to where I know ain't nothing gonna come to me.
Hmm.
If I sit on my butt, I'm not gonna accomplish nothing.
Right.
So I always wanted to be that reflection to my kids.
Hmm.
Um, especially being a black man. We labeled as you know men that sit on our butt, don't do nothing. Want
Right.
a woman to take care of us.
Mm. Yeah.
Not none of that. I mean, no, 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 no. I wash my own clothes. I can cook my own food.
Okay.
Like, to me, that's important.
Yeah.
And I always wanted my kids to
Hmm.
know that. Um,
Do you think we lost something culture wise?
oh,
Like,
we lost that all day, man. We lost that all day.
there we.
I watch kids. They don't wash clothes. They don't do a lot
Mm.
of things that they should do, especially if their parents are out there working hard. Making a life for them that's way easier than what theirs were. That should be a
That's.
man though.
Yeah.
But some parents don't like to take their kids back to where they grew up and stuff like that, so they can see like this is where I come from.
Right.
Like it's people that's over there that's still there from when I was young.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
And you guys have an opportunity to do something and to see something different and not have that hardship. So us asking you to do something, you should jump and do it. You should
Hmm.
be more appreciative. Our
Yeah.
kids are not appreciative of nothing. They
No.
think that, this is the way it's supposed to be. No,
Right.
it's not.
Right.
So for me, like, nah, they need to understand the sacrifice.
Right. Right.
Some of the parents are actually out there doing
Yeah.
to help them when it comes to curricular, to get them to school,
Right.
sports. A home cooked meal, a
True.
roof over their head.
Yeah.
They need to respect that more.
Well, and that kind of segues into what we were talking about, which is pride, right? Pride, and I want to touch on it, right? Do you feel that there's a lot of pride in our community? Yes and or no, and if it's not, what happened to it?
You mean the pride of actually
Being strong
being strong,
and professional and
or
black.
or being the pride to where you don't want to take somebody's advice and utilize it to your favor when all they're trying to do is help you.
No, yeah, the pride in because we were saying
Being
you were saying
strong.
a black man kind of just they laying up and having a woman take care of him, and that is a stereotype that does exist, and we know that. But on the contrary, what combats that? So if we're
Being
saying
strong and to me is standing for something
okay,
and not willing to fall for anything. And a lot of us, honestly, we preach, money. You got to make it in America. You got to get money. It's about money. It's bigger than money. Love and life
yeah,
is to me bigger than money.
Mm-hmm.
But we as people, we think that money is everything, wealth,
Yeah.
generational wealth. Like, it's bigger than that to me, honestly. You can't take it with you when you're dead and gone. You can
That part.
pass it on, but you can pass on a curse to
Right. Come
somebody and
on.
not even know it.
That's
You
true.
see what I'm saying? So, I look at, us as men, teaching our kids respect, you know, opening doors for ladies,
Mm-hmm.
just being respectful.
Mm-hmm.
You see somebody out there, they need some help,
Mm-hmm.
help them out.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, we don't teach
Yeah.
that. We're not showing them that. We're showing them other things,
Yeah.
and that's not something that, you know, we as fathers are tapping in on. You know,
Mm.
I'm watching people watch women fight and don't even want to break it up. I mean, these
Man,
are the things
say
that,
it.
honestly,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
but if there was their mom, they would jump over there, their sister.
That part.
That's your sister, that's your mom, them right there. Like,
Right.
what I mean? But they don't look in depth on things like that.
Yeah.
That might have been your daughter. You would want somebody to help.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really look at stuff like that. So, to me, it's important, man. If we just
Mm-hmm.
stop and just think about what
Yeah.
we're gonna say before we say it,
Yeah.
and know that words
Right.
cut deep just like weapons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's something that we don't teach our young men out here now. We want to be hard and stuff like that, but there's a time and place for that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes, you gotta have an open eye on things, and we're not teaching these kids that. We only teaching them about you gotta get money. You gotta get, like, no, that's the wrong thing. Education,
Mm-hmm.
is way more powerful.
Yeah.
And
Equip
that's
yourself.
something they can't take away from you. Quick dollars comes and goes, but you
Right.
can't take knowledge away from anybody.
That part.
Knowledge is power. There's no way of going away from that. It's the
Yeah.
most powerful thing you can have.
And I want to ask you, because we're talking about generational curses versus generational consequences. And this came to my mind talking about myself and the trauma and the abuse and then the molestation. I believe that led me down a road of promiscuity.
Yeah,
For a season, right? We've all
yeah,
been lost, right?
yeah, no facts. No
Right.
facts.
Tell
No,
the
that's
truth and
totally
shame the
facts.
devil, right? So,
No
do
facts.
you believe that people, and even kids, but it can be in adults right now, do you believe that it's a part of trauma and that we're.
Yeah, because
Uh-huh.
honestly, we see that in the household, and we feel like that's our escape. In a sense, because we watching our parents escape from these outlets.
Okay.
From watching them. Hey, honey, go light this cigarette for me.
Yeah.
You go light the cigarette. You puffing on it on the way back. They not, you know what I'm saying?
That's
And
right.
next thing you know, 10 years down the line, we smoking cigarettes, and
Mm-hmm.
we see them, indulging in alcohol and stuff like that, and now we taking sips of our, it
That's
happens
right.
like that because
Mm.
I'm not saying we glorify it, but sometimes kids only look at it as being fun and
Mm.
not realizing the consequence that comes behind, some of the actions of drinking and indulging in, cigarettes and stuff like that. So,
That's true.
that's something that's never tapped on in the home. We don't really talk about those kind of things,
Right.
honestly. A birthday party to us is a celebration.
Right.
Hey, what you bringing? Oh, hey, I got that Hennessy coming. You ain't
Right.
talking about the gift.
Huh.
You get him a gift card. We good. $20, Johnny. You know what I mean? But we not looking at it like they watching us. Party and chill. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
we tend to believe that's what it's about.
Mm. Okay. And so one thing I wanted to bring up was how it applies to me. I know myself being raised by my dad on my dad's side of the family. It made me a little bit more logical, a little bit tough. Do you feel that you've experienced any trauma being raised with your mom's side of the family versus your dad's side of the family? Or where do you think that fell in your life and how do you think that eventually affected you?
Man, it affected me a lot. My mom's side, you know, my uncles are, a couple of them are militant. You know, rest his soul, my uncle Abdul, um, to, me looking up to a few of my uncles and realizing that they clowns. Like, honestly, I had one of my uncles, Jamal, he was a computer technician, and, he lived, out in Virginia, and he used to come back and visit and stuff like that. And it was one point in time where I wanted to be a computer technician because I thought it was cool because you get to escape, our reality. And come to find out, his reality wasn't a reality, and you know, it was all smoke and mirrors. I mean, drugs. You know, not being, the person who I thought you were.
Right.
Solid. To one of my uncles, lives way out in Virginia, somewhere else, militant with his family. I think he was in the Air Force.
Okay.
But he only came around every now and then, and talked to us and stuff like that. Always was on this, family reunion, family this, like, but really not fucking with us like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We not, honestly, that cup of tea that fits that image. To one of my uncles that used to come down and visit us and then drop his lady off somewhere else and her kid, and then bring, my cousin over to my grandmother's, and we chill and play and have fun, and then, they would duck off and leave us there.
Uh,
I always looked at it like, wow, we that bad to where your kids can't chill with us. We can't get to know them like that. To my uncle Danny, bringing his kid over, keeping him in my grandmother's garage doing music and stuff like that, and not really allowing us to talk to him. But his white friends can come over and chill in the garage and play music and do that kind of stuff. We were too bad. We couldn't do that until he seen we were kind of interested in music and stuff like that. But I don't think that that's showing your nephews, love.
okay.
I look at it to where, I seen love from my Uncle Abdul, picking us up and teaching us certain things about life,
Okay.
and showing us the grind. Um,
Do you
I
think
don't
that it was better for you or worse?
I
Or
think it
was
just showed me that in reality that those were men that were trying to even, you know, not saying step in and fulfill our father's absence, but just being men and uncles,
right.
that's supposed to, granted, I'm not your kid, but I'm your kid. I'm your sister's child. You should be trying to guide me in a different direction. They not. They throwing us to wolves, throwing us out into the streets, not cool, but in a sense, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Not all of us are gonna look at it and make the best of it.
Okay.
Some of us spiral down that black hole. You know, some of us make it out, some of us don't. You know, but it started right there. It could have shaped us in a different way.
Okay.
You know, they wanted the best for their kids. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So why wouldn't you want the best for your sister's kids, even though that they don't have the opportunity that your kids have? Why not, try to uplift them, you know, instead of being so hard on them, and treating us, like outcasts.
Yeah. Is that why you go so hard at pouring into people and
Yeah,
kids?
honestly, yeah, because honestly, like I said, I had that in spurts of people,
Okay.
when it should have been already happening in my own home, living with my grandmother or with my mom or where, what I mean, it should have been there. I had certain things that were stuff that I took that helped me survive, um, militant,
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about being hurt. I
Mm.
watch, and participated in um, operations, that prepare me for the streets, and that's something like, what about,
Mm.
what I mean, how to be a man or how to talk to a lady or to get a job, you know what I'm saying? We ain't have none of
Did
that.
you have any good like marriages as examples growing up? Did you have some people you're like, I want to be like them?
My uncle was one. My uncle Jamal, I should see him and this girl. I watched him, create something and move.
Okay.
Yeah, to a certain extent, but
Okay.
reality, nah.
Yeah, me either. I haven't
Like,
seen too many happy
nah. I
people.
mean, I didn't even watch the Huxtables because I knew that was not even real. The Cosby Show. I just knew that wasn't something that I was walking outside seeing.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
That was not my reality. So
Yeah.
no. I seen bad relationships,
Mm.
people fighting, bloody, then they kissing. I love you. I'm like, what is this?
Trauma
You know what I
bond.
mean? Like, yeah, for real, like
Yeah.
real talk. And you know what I mean? I ain't never been something that I
Mm-hmm.
thought was love. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, nah, no,
Yeah.
no,
No.
no, no two parenting home. I've never seen.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, nah.
Wow. So well, tell us a little bit about how you use that to do what you do now, how you use that to fuel you into who you've
Um,
become.
watching my I watched my dad's brothers um on the other side do so many different things. Um, my Uncle Ed, my Uncle Ronnie, um, my grandmother Frankie, just watching them maneuver different,
Okay.
the way they talk to one another, the interaction, the brotherhood, regardless if were having a conversation and didn't agree on it. To me, visiting them, they always talked to me.
Mm-hmm.
Asked me what I was doing, what I was trying to do. Just a lot of questions I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't getting from my mom's brothers. Not like that. Like, nah, it was
Okay.
different.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it wasn't even on no materialistic stuff. Even my uncle being a pimp, and him having a lavish lifestyle. It wasn't even about him giving me money or looking at him in a nice car, the women. It wasn't none of that. It was just the fact that he would break down life and talk to me about life,
Mm.
and it made you pay attention. Granted, I had to go back to my reality home, but for that time, it was something that I wasn't getting. He was like
Mm.
really opening my mind to the Matrix. Like I was seeing stuff like, whoa, okay, I get what you're
Mm.
saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would come back and listen, see my other uncles, and I'm like, they just talk down to you. Like that's weird.
Oh, okay.
So I would use that to maneuver. So doing what I'm doing now, it's all about uplifting.
Okay.
My brother Marcus got this thing, the saying, each one teach one,
Okay.
trying to teach,
Yeah.
trying to, elevate. We want them, we want kids to be productive citizens out here. Um, whatever they want to be, they can be. You just got to be willing to go hard and to sacrifice.
Good.
So,
And tell us, how many kids are you working with now currently, in what capacity?
man, I work with a lot of kids. I run an organization called Savage Storm, tied with the union. Right now, I work with 80, 90 kids, coaching and stuff like that. Um, it's very fun for me. I
Yeah.
love it. I look forward to doing it tomorrow. I wake up tomorrow. A lot of people, "Oh, I got to go to work." It don't bother me. I'm
Right.
ready to go to work. Like it's fun. Um, but it's something that, I learned of 20 years of giving somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
my life, a
Right.
company, to being appreciated by kids and parents that see they want the best out of their kid when it comes to what we're actually doing with AAU basketball. It's actually nice.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
love giving back. I love trying to teach these kids the A, B, and C. You know,
Yeah.
everybody want to know, X, Y, and Z, but what about A, B, and C? So
Yeah.
I love it, giving back and building kids and helping out. So
Right.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, you're so modest and humble, but your work that you do is thankless with the kids and then also with us, right? As the staff, just keeping our mental there. And so that's why I want to make sure I wanted to highlight you. And,
Oh, thank you,
you're
thank you.
someone, you are a pillar in the community.
I
You're an
try,
awesome
try.
individual. You're an excellent friend. And I want to just thank you so much for
Thank you,
coming to the
thank you.
show, for gracing us with your presence, for sharing your wisdom and light. I think it is important. I think talking about what's going on mental health wise in our community and the trauma community, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Like, to me, it's dope, and I just got another opportunity to actually coach at a high school. So, it's something that I didn't want to do. I always said that this is not something that I seen myself doing. This is something that God wanted me to do. Honestly, it's bigger than me. You
Right.
know, I never wanted to be a coach like that. I always wanted to work with kids and help them out. But to get an opportunity to coach at a high school now is something like, you know what? I was riding talking to my dad, like, I get an opportunity to like put a plaque up in a school, something that nobody can ever take away.
Yeah.
That's something that's gonna be in the archives.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, you know what? I'm about to do something that, somebody said that I couldn't do.
Right.
Even when me and my brother started Savage Storm, from another man telling us that, me pretty much, you can't do what trying to do. Instead of helping and uplifting. And, this is the stuff that people don't realize. Like, why would you want somebody not to succeed or not to elevate?
Right.
Right. Everybody's so about them. It's, like I always say, it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I do what I do, because it's more than just me.
Right.
I'm just a vessel.
That's right.
So
Right.
at the end of the day, utilize me to your full. I'm okay. I'm gonna definitely try to help out. So that's too easy. But now I get an opportunity to put a plaque in the school. I'm definitely gonna go hard, and I'm excited. Honestly, like, I think this is gonna be something monumental. So I'm gonna try to build the best program, build something that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah.
And it's something that me and my brother's been doing. It's all about the grind.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want the grind. They want, finished product.
That right.
They
That
don't,
part.
they don't want the scuffed up stuff.
That part.
That's where I come from. So let's go. I'm excited about it. So
Oh yeah.
it's gonna be something else that, people can talk about.
Yeah.
Of course, they're praying for my downfall, but we so quick to turn, doubters into believers. That's something, my grandmother always said, you got to turn the non-believers into believers.
That's right.
So I'm ready, and I accept the challenge.
Yeah.
So it's time to go.
And that's a big one. Congratulations, right? And you're qualified, and it's really a treat for them because you're a blessing. You're tough, you're on it, and you show them how to be men, right? You even show us women how to be women. So
hey, I just try, honestly, it's a respect thing, and I got so much love and respect for people just in general, it's granted sometimes it don't come back that way,
Right.
but I'm okay with it. Like, honestly, like, I don't do things to get people's applaud or to get somebody to, give me that gratitude.
Yeah.
I do it because this is what I want to do. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Right. That's what I'm called to do. I'm called to.
Hey, gotta do it, man. I'm not running from it. I'm running to it.
That's
So,
it. That's it. I appreciate that. And I want to say again, thank you, Dre, for coming, for
anytime,
being with us,
anytime.
for spreading your love, for spreading your light.
Anytime you need me, it's too easy. Like I said, I'm a vessel. Let me know where to be. I'm there.
I appreciate you. Keep going. Thank you.
No problem.
We gon' talk about it. Tamaya. We gon' talk about it. Tamaya. We gon' talk. Tamaya gon' talk about it. We gon' talk. Tamaya gon' talk about it. We gon' talk about it. Tamaya. We gon' talk about it. Tamaya gon' talk.